trying to psych myself up to go climbing outdoors this weekend because it's finally stopped raining, but it's really cold. It's a little bit above freezing, but given I was freezing my ass off climbing indoors in the indoor wall yesterday, and when you climb outdoors and it's this cold, the rock is of course freezing cold. It just sucks the heat out of your fingertips, and within 2 or 3 moves your fingers are numb. I think my enthusiasm for cold January climbing has left me behind somewhere. So I thought I could go surfing. There's no surf, so we'll go to the beach. We'll go to the beach, go for a walk, make it up, right? It's good to go to the beach. It's been so wet. I haven't been out for ages. We got a few miles of sand, and then probably walk back over the hill, over the down. Great views today. Or maybe the cloud will lift. I said a couple of weeks ago with 2024 to make some plans and make some backup plans, because that's a good plan in itself. I've been back at work for a couple of weeks, so what have I been planning? Well, there are some innovative teaching and research things going on, some ideas in my head. But there's something else that's also gone on my whiteboard. So what is the most efficient way to teach? The most efficient way to teach is lectures. You have your 300 students, you stick them in a room. You have your experts, you stick him at the front of the room, or her, and you read through a PowerPoint presentation for 50 minutes and you all go away. And that's the most efficient way to teach. I'm not saying it's the best way to teach or the most effective way to learn, but it's the most efficient way to teach, because all those bums on seats earn university money and you only have to pay that one salary at the front there. Of course, you know, there are lots of different ways of teaching with tutorials and practicals and bits and bobs. So what's the most efficient way to learn then? Most people in Britain can drive a car and hold a license to drive a car. When you learn to drive, you have one instructor and you have one student, and they sit next to each other, and every lesson is a practical lesson. The student is operating the car and the instructor is teaching them how to go about doing that, right? And the teacher can vary what they do depending upon the strengths and weaknesses of the learner, what they're doing well, what they're picking up quickly, what they're not picking up so quickly, what they need more practice on, what needs to be explained better or maybe a little bit differently for this particular person. So there's an adaptive thing, there's a practical thing, there's a one-to-one teaching ratio. That sounds like probably the most effective way to learn. The evidence for that is that within a number of months, within a dozen lessons or so maybe, that student can sit a national standard exam. And again, it's like a Viva assessment, it's a practical assessment with an examiner, and they can meet that nationally set standard, and they're given a license to operate some heavy machinery that is dangerous and is able to kill people, right? Last year, the UK government announced, because of major staffing issues within the National Health Service, they announced that medical schools in Britain must train twice as many medical students by 2031. I think about 7,500 medical students graduate each year and become doctors. We've got to go to 15,000. So there are a few new medical schools appearing and may appear between now and then, but we're not going to double the number of medical schools between now and 2031, are we? Which means that every single medical school is going to have to double the number of students that it teaches. So if you take a medical school that teaches 300 medical students, so that's 300 comes in the first year. So if you've got 5 years of students, multiply that by 5. But anyway, if you've got 300 medical students a year at the moment, you're going to have to double that to 600. Hence my interest in what's the best way to teach. Most medical schools, or most universities, will have big lecture theatres that maybe will take 300, 350 students, rarely maybe 500 students, but you're not going to have many universities with lecture theatres that will take 600 students. And as far as I'm aware, this instruction to train twice as many medical students doesn't actually come with any capital funding to, build big lecture theatres or, from my perspective, rebuild anatomy labs. In a few weeks' time, I love teaching embryology lectures, but in a few weeks' time, my respiratory embryology lecture falls on a Wednesday, and Wednesdays at the moment for our current first years are all, asynchronous learning online by Zoom videos. So I said, I've got a recording of this lecture back when the anatomy lab was set up with loads of cameras and lights and models and stuff. Can I use that? It's better than me, hunching over a laptop and trying to give a presentation. So I'm going to do that. So then, have we shifted to the most efficient way of teaching is by video lectures? So I think I've got a head start there. On my whiteboard at work then is a plan, a series of ideas. I'm thinking about how could I teach 200 students, 250 students, 300 students. We've already doubled. When we started teaching medicine at Swansea, we had 75 students. Well, the guinea pig year was 37, I think, but we've been teaching 75 students a year, and now that's doubled to 150. So I have to think about how do we double to 300 students. And clearly we're not going to be doing what we do now. It's going to be less practical. So do I use videos, video lectures? Do I use lectures? How much practical stuff do I do? If we're not going to get bigger labs or more models or more cadavers, how do I manage that? The land. The land has fallen down. Reading learned publications about this, there seems to be an assumption that technology will be the solution. AI, that'll let us train twice as many medical students. Nobody said how, but they've just said that AI will do it. Also a lot of mixed reality, virtual reality and what have you, which might be right for simulation. So I often condense my job to, I just teach anatomy. So that's the only bit I have to worry about. That's the bit I have experience in. But of course teaching medical students is very difficult. They do have a lot of lectures, and they do have anatomy practicals, but then they also have to learn clinical skills practically, and they have to spend time in the clinic working with patients, getting all that experience before they start work. So all that has got to double somehow. So yeah, there's a role for augmented reality and simulation, but people are also saying there's a role for augmented reality in anatomy. Hey, I've already been working on this, but yeah, I don't think medical students are all going to own their own AR headsets anytime soon, and I don't think we're going to be buying them. I'm not expecting this to happen imminently, but what I'm doing is I'm thinking of a plan, and I'm thinking of a backup plan, and I'm thinking of a backup plan, and I'm getting other people involved, so I'm preparing way in advance and saying, what do you think about this and this and this? I foresee difficulties in my future that may or may not come to pass, So I'm spending the time now thinking about those difficulties, thinking about how I might deal with them. No concrete plans, just ideas and thoughts, and kind of a group of thoughts makes a bit of a plan, and then there's an alternative and a backup, and I've got pretty experienced at this, and I've learned that people don't give you plenty of time to deal with these things. They just drop them in your lap and say, hey, we got this thing, get on with it. If you thought about it in advance, you are better prepared.